Alright, hello everyone, welcome back. It's that time of the week. It is time for some more WOR Esports Challenges tier. I am your race commentator, More Games, and joined alongside me tonight is Steve. How are you doing, Steve?
I'm very good, More. How are you today on this fine Sunday evening?
I'm really looking forward to this, and I'm very excited to be here commentating in WOR on one of the most competitive tiers in the league. And yeah, just really happy to be here. And you can see it is now the start of Q1. Sorry everyone for the small delay there, but we have got those technical difficulties out of the way, and we are now ready for qualifying. And you can see all of the drivers are too, getting themselves out on the intermediate compound tires to test their setups. But coming into this round, I guess we can take a quick look at the championship standings, which Talent Factory Rudy is currently leading, and by quite some margin. He's leading by 18 points over PSR Wilson. He's got 43 points out in front. Then tied for second place is PSR Wilson and Talent Factory Rowan, and then in fourth we have NRX Rusty, followed by Veloce Danurco, and that is your top 5 in the standings. But Rudy doing an absolutely excellent job so far in this championship. Got a race win in the first round, and last week out he finished P2, so Rudy's been on some excellent form recently in this tier.
Yeah, he certainly has, and of course I should say welcome to the Combox, More. This is your first time doing the challenges tier. It's usually Evan, but yeah, Rudy has been very good, very consistent so far in this tier. The same with Wilson as well. He's got a 5th place and a 3rd place to put him up in second standing. So this tier is all about consistency, really. You can't have one weekend off, or you're really just screwed overall for the overall just championship for this tier. Of course, this is challenges before challenges, so this is technically a practice race for some of these drivers. So they will be wanting to just practice their setups, make sure they know what strategies work. This is what we've been saying over the past few weeks, that they will focus a lot on this, but they'll experiment a lot more compared, so they know exactly what is the right sort of terms for the actual challenges that they.
Yeah, this is really the perfect opportunity to get that practice in before the main event itself. Obviously, the exact same calendar as the real F1 Esports Challengers series. So yeah, it's the perfect place to get some practice in and race against the competitors that you will be racing against in the real deal itself. Obviously, all of these drivers are in that, or well, most of the drivers are in the Challenger series, with the exception of a reserve or two. But yeah, like you said, consistency is always a massive thing at the top levels, because if you make a single mistake, usually it's a 20-man DRS train, so if you make a single mistake, you're going to see yourself tumbling down the order completely, and that might be the end of your chance at points. So yeah, consistency super important, and then obviously the pace is a big thing. But these drivers, once you get to the top levels of the game, it's really hard to differentiate yourself from the rest of the grid, just because of how close it is. Usually only a couple of 100ths separating the drivers, and that's extra true at a circuit like Imola, where the lap times are very low. You can see on the intermediate compound tires in the dry conditions, it's still only 1 minute 18 second lap time. So yeah, it's really quick times from the drivers, and yeah, they're all really close to each other during the qualifying session. But this is currently Q1, and obviously the drivers have set their first times on the intermediate compound tires just to make sure their setups are working and get themselves accustomed to the conditions in this specific qualifying session. But right now, obviously, I'm quite new to this tier. Who do you think's really going to be up there in terms of qualifying in this Q1 session, and obviously Q2 and Q3 as well?
We can see the likes of Rudy, also maybe Kian as well. He was not too bad last time out. Maybe Choco, he is on pads. It doesn't really work well around Imola, but he could be up there. He was unfortunately out in Q2 last week. Not really his greatest of qualifyings. Maybe even Fern as well on the Xbox side. He's been quite good too. Stonks maybe, and of course Wilson, who's second in the championship and have been really consistent so far. So there's if I had to choose one, it will probably be Rudy. He is a very quick driver, but there are so many drivers, and around a circuit like this where there's no room for error and it's so close and such a quick lap times, really can be anyone's game.
Yeah, it definitely can. And I myself, being a PlayStation commentator, I do know that Talent Factory Rudy is probably the fastest driver I've ever gotten to commentate over, himself, and probably Talent Factory legend. So yeah, I know Rudy, he's definitely a super competitive guy, and he's on top of his game constantly. He always sets those fastest lap times, and it shows. He's done so well in the first 2 rounds of the season, and I'm sure that form is not going to drop off. He's so quick that he even made the switch to PC, I think, and he's on PlayStation right now just to compete in the F1 Esports Challenger Series. So he's always a good option for pole position. And you know, like I mentioned, I'm a PlayStation commentator, so I don't know too much about the Xbox guys. What I do know is the Talent Factory drivers. That's probably the best team on PlayStation right now. So the likes of Kian, Rudy, Blackbox, and Rowan, I know those guys will definitely be up there. They're all super quick on this game, and in the top tiers of PSGL's PlayStation side. But you can see the drivers have now, well, most of them have set a time on the intermediate compound of tires. So everyone just sticking into the pit lane for now. No one really wants to go out this early in this session. They're going to wait for a little bit later on when the track evolution is at its best, especially the drivers who are confident that they can make it into the second stage of qualifying with just 1 lap time. But one driver who is going to be going out a little bit earlier and is hoping maybe to get 2 lap times onto the board in this session is the Mercedes driver of PSR Stonks. So he's gone out a little bit early, and I think we will see most drivers come out around that at 9-minute 30-second mark, because that gives you an opportunity to set a lap time now, and if that's not quick enough, you'll still have enough time to set 1 final lap at the end of the session. So PSR Stonks, and has he been on good form recently? Could we see possibly a good qualifying lap from him that could hopefully get him into Q2 in this qualifying session?
I mean, usually he is a very, very quick driver. I'm just going to look at the standings, see where he is. He's actually scored no points in Bahrain and got a DNF in Australia. But Stonks, he is a quick driver. He certainly can do it. And yeah, it may be a bit early on coming out in the session, a bit out of sync to everybody else. He might get traffic on this lap. So as he heads across the start finish line, DRS wide open, sticking that to that right hand side, close to the pit lane, then bring yourself back to the outside, which then takes you in to the first chicane, Tamburello, of course, and now into turn 3. Nicely done there, and very easy flat. Now into the Villeneuve chicane, I think on 5 and 6. Very, very hard chicane there. You have to be so on the limit with the track limits and also just touching the gravel. Now through Toza and now up the hill as we're on board with Stonks. It was, I think, I didn't actually see his first section. That was a bit stupid by me. But now through the left-hander, very fast, very flat, very easy to spin the car around and also invalidate. Now through Aqua Minerale, a very difficult traction zone up the hill, always on that outside curb. He's done it nicely through there. What is it going to be in the middle sector? A 50.0, 2.4 seconds up on his lap time, his intermediate lap time. So now, as we come out of the chicane and head down into the final 2 corners, and Aston Martin in front of him, that could be either Lucas or Bourbon as we now head through the 2 Ravazzas, and now to the line. We'll keep it to the inside, take as tight of a line as possible through the corner. That's a 1 minute 15.3 for PSR Stonks. Not too bad of a lap time, and I reckon that might see him through depending on how everyone else is doing on their lap times.
Definitely a very decent time there from Stonks to put him on provisional pole position, as he is the first man to set a lap time on the soft component tyres. One thing I noticed is PSR Fern hasn't actually come out of the pit lane. I don't think he might have invalidated a lap and come back in, but I think he's been in the pit lane this whole time. So he might just be trying to go for 1 single lap time in this qualifying session and hope to get through with just that. Riding on board with Shizu Tom, the PSGL PlayStation F1 man, as he heads up the hill through turn number 7, hitting a nice late apex there and then opening the steering to get onto that exit curve. You want to be getting onto the power as quickly as possible out of here so you can get a good run through turn number 9. You can see quite an early apex there through Tom. Didn't carry much speed into there, so we could have lost a little bit of time through Aqua Minerale now, and you really like to get on top of that white line as you head as he heads through turn number 13. You can see a lot quicker lap times are now being set with PSR Wilson now on top of the 15 flat for the Ferrari driver. Very quick indeed, and that will definitely serve him well for the rest of this qualifying session. Shizou Tom now through turn number 17, and the final turn of turn number 18. You can see on the knife's edge of invalidating his lap time, but just about kept it in the limits. And across the line is going to be a 1 minute 15.3 for the McLaren driver. That pops him into P7, just behind PSR Stonks. So definitely a little bit of improvement will be required. And yeah, you can see what the average lap times are now, and what we might be expecting will get drivers through to qualifying 2 in this session, as we now see Talent Factory Rudy come out of the final turn of turn number 18. Let's see what the championship leader can set. Is it going to be a 1 minute 14? Yes, it is. It's a 1 minute 14.9 for Talent Factory Rudy. Great lap time from the AlphaTauri driver. But we can now see what kind of lap times these drivers are setting, and what do you think the cutoff might be around in this Q1 session?
I reckon we could be looking at maybe a 0.2, maybe a 0.3 cut-off time here. It's extremely close. I mean, Wilson and Rudy only separated by 13 thousandths, and also the likes of Tom, Stonks and Kimber all separated by pretty much nothing, especially Tom and Kimber, 1,000 separating those two. I think that's Kian going up into 6th. No, it's not. His Bradder's actually got up into 7th. He's set a 0.2. It's going to be a tough one to decide. I'm going to say it's a 0.2 for cut-off. It's going to be extremely close, though, with how tight this field really is. But yeah, you've got to be on your A game for every lap you do, because if you waste another set of softs in this session, you're not really going to be in the best of situations if you get through to Q3.
Yeah, definitely not. Obviously, most drivers will only have 3 sets of soft compound tires, plus 1 if they get through to qualifying 3. Some drivers do opt for the 4 soft compound of tires. Obviously, you can have different tire allocations, but I think most drivers do like to go with the 3 soft compounded tires, because that means you get 1 extra set of mediums for the Grand Prix itself. PSR Ferns coming across the line, he shoots up to P3 there with a 15.1. Good time from the Mercedes driver. You can see Talent Factory Rudy fully confident in his time, as PSR Fern is as well. He retires on his way down to turn 2 and 3. So I'm not sure if that's allowed, but he has retired on circuit there. So Talent Factory Rudy and both PSR Fern as well, with a 15.1. So you might be right with that 15.2 cutoff, because obviously those drivers are confident that they can make it through. PSR Wilson hasn't retired yet, so we'll have to see what he's thinking. The further we get into the session, the closer we get to the end, we'll see whether or not he decides to retire. We can now see some more drivers coming out. That's Axe F1, who retires with a 15.1. Yeah, so I think the general consensus here amongst these F1 Esports Challengers drivers is that a 15.1 is good enough for qualifying 2. But that means everybody else in the field still has a improvement to make on their time. So you can see the likes of Talent Factory Keen. He's currently on a 15.2, but it is a low 0.2. You might be good enough with that time, or he might just be thinking that he needs to get 1 more lap time onto the board. Bradders as well, very low 0.2. But then the likes of PSR Plaque, Stonks, Shizou Tom, Schumacher, I think they're all going to have to go out for another lap time in this session. And you can see the likes, the 2 Aston Martin drivers of Lucas and Bourbon, they did not get representative lap times onto the board, so they're definitely going to have to go out for 1 more time. But we have 2.5 minutes left to go in the session, and you can see actually Kian and Bradders haven't come out of the pit lane. Shizou Tom is now out of the pit lane. Stonks is out of the pit lane, but we're not seeing the top 10 come out of the pit lane. You can see the AlphaTauri Plaki hasn't come out, Bradders hasn't come out, and Kian hasn't come out. So yeah, it looks like they're confident with their 15.2. So you might be dead right with that 15.2 cutoff, but the rest of the field, they've got to improve now.
Yeah, this is pretty much crunch time now for most of these drivers. Quantum, I think, is going to be the first one on a lap as he's heading down the main straight now. This track is going to be constantly evolving as far as we get into qualifying. This might even still be a 0.1 cutter, depending on how quickly the track has improved over the last few minutes. Quantum now, as he's actually backed off Heath's lap, probably not happy with his first few corners through Tamburello and the fourth corner, the fast left-hander. We do have some more drivers though on their laps. I think the furthest one round will be probably Amin as he's heading into Toza. 10.5 improvement. That isn't going to take him out of the bottom 5 just yet, but there's certainly going to be more time to find in his lap. 15.7. Not really the best of lap times, probably the last of the most representative times on the board. So now through Aqua Minerale, nicely done, taking a lot of that inside curve and then flinging the car back to the outside. Now, as we're about to head through the Variante Outer, 2.5 tenth improvement. This will put him up into maybe P16, maybe even P15 if he is quick enough. But as we head down now into the final 2 corners, the 2 Ravazzas through the first one, maybe a bit wide from the apex, but then just want to swing the car in for the second one. What would this be for Amin? Is it going to be good enough to push him out of the bottom 5? No, it's only good enough for P16. That is surely going to be Amin out. He will not have the battery to do anything else with it. Levi's backed off. A lot of these drivers backing off to start their laps. And yeah, they haven't really got it nailed in the first run.
Yeah, you can see that's just disappointing there for likes of Amin, Quantum and Levi. Obviously Quantum and Levi abandoned their lap times. That's because they're going for another lap. They just about had enough time, especially Levi, just about got over the line to set one more lap. But he will be on 1 lap old soft compound tyres, so it might affect his lap slightly as he heads through turn number 5 and 6. And let's see what he can do. Slight step of the rear end there, but he is improving and almost by 0.2 of a second. So Levi looking pretty decent so far as he heads out the first sector of the lap time. He's currently in P16 and this will knock him out of Q1 if he does not improve. So he's got to get this down now as he heads down the hill and through Aqua Minerale, hitting his first apex and now the second. You can see quite an early apex for that second apex, and that's completely offset his line, and that means it's wheel spin city for Levi, and that's spun him round now, so he will not be improving on his time. Quantum does improve on his time, but not his position, so he is going to be out in Q1 along with Amin. Let's see what the Aston Martin of VSR Lucas can do. He's coming out of Aqua Minerale now, doesn't get too much wheel spin and is coming through this very tight chicane here as he glides the car over those big yellow sausage curbs down the hill now and through this flat out turn of turn 16. He's just got 2 more turns to go. Let's see what he can do. Not hitting the curb on the inside there, went a little bit wide, and through the final turn now doesn't use the full width of the exit curb, but across the line, what's it going to be for VSR Lucas? It's not enough. It's an improvement, but it's a 15.6 for the Aston Martin driver, which means he does not get himself out of qualifying 1. He will be starting from the back of the grid, but we'll now see what drivers have actually gotten themselves through to Q2, and you can take a look here. You can see Rudy getting that P1 with this 14.9, the only driver to set a 1 minute 14 second lap time. But it's VSR Lucas who'll be starting at the back alongside his VSR teammate Quantum, who set a 15.6 and a 15.4. Amin wasn't able to get through either, and NVR Amin wasn't able to get through. Levi did not get a big enough improvement, and Choco is the last man out of qualifying. You can see how close it was between himself and Stonks, just a couple of 100ths of a second, but the cutoff time was 15.3, so a little bit slower than we were expecting, but that is the time that Stonks has gotten away with just about to get himself through to Q2. So any big surprises there in the drivers that got knocked out in that first part of qualifying?
Maybe Levi. He was into Q3 around Australia and he was pretty decent throughout that. And also, yeah, maybe Choco as well. But I did say that pad isn't really the greatest around here. It's not really to its advantage against most circuits around this track, but maybe even Lucas as well. That's 3 straight Q1's eliminations for Lucas in this challenges tier so far, and we all thought that it might change after in the week he won the tier 2 race around Austria in WR this season. So yeah, not really the best of qualifyings once again for Lucas. Back of the grid, 3 straight eliminations in Q1, sorry. And yeah, Lucas not having the greatest of challenges here so far this season.
Yeah, definitely give a little bit of a knock to his confidence, especially when he does head into the real F1 Esports Challengers. But this is obviously a practice session, so it's a perfect time to get those mistakes out of the way. Make sure you don't make them in the real thing. So he'll know what he did wrong. Obviously, he didn't get an original banker time onto the board, so he had to put it all on that final lap time. Sadly, has not worked out for him, and will be starting from the back row of the field. But his teammate Bourbon was able to get himself through just about, as he was in the bottom 5 towards the end of the session, but that final lap time did save him and got him through to Q2. So the drivers now coming out very early in the session with 14 minutes to go. They're all heading out of the pit lane, so obviously the strategy is a little bit different in this Q2 session. The drivers obviously want to get out just that little bit earlier to get those banker times in, and actually quite surprised. I'm not too sure why they haven't gone out at around 9 minutes and 30 seconds like they did in Q1. But obviously, for the drivers who aren't super confident that they can make it through to Q3, I think they'll be probably using the remainder of their soft compound tires, attempting to get into that final part of qualifying, because you get that extra set of softs even if you've used all of the ones that you've had in Q1 and Q2. So everyone getting out nice and early. I think the first man to get out was one of the Haas cars, and it was Talent Factory Kian who was the first out of the pit lane. So that's right on board for the first qualifying lap time of Q2, and right on board for the entirety of this lap with the Talent Factory drivers. He heads across the line to begin his lap time, shifting up to 8th gear. Quite a high downforce circuit, so the top speeds aren't too high as we head into turn number 2, not hitting the yellow sausage curbs on the insides of the apexes, as they can definitely sew you up. So that's a safety car on the circuit, and I think that's just decent for me because Kian's gone right through it. Bit weird, but we continue on. Crossplay does have its fun little glitches as Kian through turn number 7 now, and only using a little bit of the exit curb there, doesn't get too high onto it, as it could unsettle the floor of the car and spin the wheels just a little bit too much. Now through turn number 9, that was a very good line from him, just about tapping the late apex there to carry speed, but also get a decent exit out of Akamuna Rally and into this chicane here with the big yellow sausage curbs. Let's see how he takes it. Really cut that first apex aggressively, and then just about tap the second one while using the white lines to guide you on the exit. The final 2 turns now for the Talent Factory driver. Don't want to ride that first curb there, and then onto the final turn of the circuit using the white lines. And now across the line, Talent Factory Kian. It's a 15.4 for the Haas driver, a little bit slower than what he did in qualifying 1. But this is his first time of the session, and the track will have had a little bit of time to cool down from the gap between Q1 and Q2. His teammate, though, Alesh, goes to P1 with a 15.2. That's a good time from him. But all eyes lie on Talent Factory Rudy, who I think actually invalidated his lap time. So that might be a knock on his confidence, as I think he did invalidate his first lap time of the session. So maybe a little bit of inconsistency shown from Talent Factory Rudy.
Yeah, maybe. That's certainly not what he wants to be on the back foot like that. Having that time on the board really is important in case some, like the drivers behind you, somehow all invalidate their laps, but that's still something that can happen. Kimber and Kai have set the exact same lap time, so you can't separate the 2 PSR drivers, it seems, but I reckon some of these drivers will be on used sets from Q1, maybe the likes of the drivers that came out later on in the session, so the likes of Bourbon, maybe the Tom as well. Tom came out later in the session. Stonks as well, I think. So they might be on the used sets. That might be why their times are a bit slower than what they were in Q1. Maybe also track conditions not at the best. I know we'll probably keep getting quicker, but maybe the track not rubbing in too much yet, and these used tyres might not be liking it at the moment, but we'll have to wait and see. But Rudy and Wilson both invalidating. They were the big 2 in the last session, so that's really them on the back foot. They'll have the delta from when they invalidated. Of course, you still get the delta of the lap time to help them understand how much up on their lap time they are or down on it they are. But yeah, having no lap on the board is the same with Schumacher as well. Very, very costly if you invalidate your next run.
It definitely is, and the two leaders in the championship definitely don't want to be invalidating their lap times in Q2, so that will waste them a set of soft compound tyres, which is a shame. But they're the top two in the championship for a reason, so I'm sure they'll be able to get another quick lap time onto the board, hopefully. Obviously, Rudy set a 14.9 in the first part of qualifying, so I think that's what a lot of drivers who are gunning for that provisional pole position in this session. I think that's what we're going to see at the top of the timing sheets. But for the cutoff point, obviously we did have a better understanding of what it might be, although we did guess a little bit quicker than what it was, with it ending up to be a 15.3. We could see it to be a 15.2 or a 15.1. But you can see the drivers are coming out again, so I think these drivers are trying to set 3 lap times in this session. It's been a while since I've commentated on a session with full qualifying, all Q1, Q2 and Q3, so I don't remember my strategies too much, as it's also been a while since I've raced in a full qualifying session. But it seems like the strategy is to first go out on that used set of soft compound tires, then once you have your 2 fresh sets left over, you come out now at the 9-minute 30-second mark, and then you'll still have 1 set left over for the final few minutes of qualifying. So most drivers attempting to set 3 lap times in the session, so they have the best chance of getting through to Q3, which is absolutely crucial, starting in that P10, in that top 10, especially at a circuit like this. Imola, it's definitely not a circuit that's known for easy overtaking, so drivers will be making sure that they put maximum effort into this qualifying session, as we see the Aston Martin safety car come down the straight again, which is absolutely lovely to see. But is there any drivers that are now, because obviously now the drivers are onto the fresh soft compound of tires, so I think we're going to start seeing the fastest lap times in Q2 now. Is there any drivers who you think might be able to get a good lap time onto the board at this mid stage of Q2?
Obviously Rudy and Wilson will probably be up there quite a bit. I reckon Placky might be able to as well. He might be able to put in a very good lap time up at the top. I mean, Keane's just started his lap. He's actually had a huge slide out of the Tamburello chicane. He's backed out at lap 1. There's a Aston Martin of Bourbon going round. Maybe he might be able to pull something out the bag. He usually can when it comes to these sort of things. We'll see how much he's up by in the first sector. 3.5 tenths at the moment. That's already bumping him up a good few places just off that alone. But of course, that probably wasn't used tyres. Everyone else probably using used tyres, maybe other than Allison up at the top. So we're just going to have to wait and see what happens as Bourbon now heads into Aquaminarale. It's a very, very fun corner to drive. You just got to send it through the 2 apexes, and now into the Variante Alta. He's up by 5.5 tenths now, so half a second as he actually invalidates at the Variante Alta, and that could have actually been a very, very good lap time there from Bourbon, but he messed it up with only 3 corners to go.
Yeah, this circuit is absolutely notorious for its track limits. So many turns where you can just go that little bit too wide, cut the corner just a little bit too much, and you will see that invalidation on your screen. So yeah, it's definitely a tricky one, that chicane, because you've got to cut it absolutely perfectly and then still keep it within the track limits for the exit. But we're now seeing the fast lap times come through. PSR Wilson with a 14.8 from the Ferrari driver, showing us why he's currently P2 in the championship. But the man who's challenging him for that P1, Talent Factory Rudy, is heading through turn number 18, using the width of the circuit to get his best exit and across the line. Can he get into the 1 minute 14s? Yes, he can, but it's not faster than PSR Wilson. 2 1,000ths of a second separate the front row runners, and PSR Wilson, as of right now, is the fastest driver in the field. Brilliant lap time from the 2 of them to get themselves into the 1 minute 14 seconds, and this time it's not just Rudy in the 1 minute 14s, because Talent Factory Brothers and Talent Factory Black Box join them. So 3 Talent Factory drivers into those 1 minute 14 second lap times. And I told you that Talent Factory is probably the best team on PlayStation, and obviously it's mainly Talent Factory drivers that are repping PlayStation in this tier. Of course, we have also Shazoo with Shazoo Tom and Schumacher in the Alpine as well. But Yeah, great lap times from the top four to get themselves into the 1 minute 14-second lap times. And I think now with those 1 minute 14-second lap times, they will be safe going into Q3. So I think most of them will be retiring from the session. But you can see the cutoff point is now starting to get a little bit more aggressive. P9 is on a 15.1, and obviously Bourbon is 1/10 behind on a 15.2. But with P9 being on a 15.1, we could see a cutoff point of a 15.1 in this session, maybe a 15.2, but I think it's a little more likely that the cutoff point is obviously going to be a bit quicker in this Q2 session than it was in Q1.
Yeah, it probably certainly will, but maybe even we might see a 0.0 depending if some drivers really do pick up the pace quite a lot. I mean, look how close it is from, we'll say, Fern all the way down. Kai's now got up into P6. That's pushed it down to a 15.134. I reckon we are going to get a 15.0 cutoff time here. The people in the 14s, they're probably safe. Maybe Kai just a bit unsafe. But yeah, most of the drivers in the 14s are going to be very, very safe in this one. Shizu, Tom and Kian actually quite far down the order relative to where you would sort of expect them to be. And also Bourbon, he tried his best on his lap. Of course, they were one lap hold. They already pretty much done a push lap on him. So he probably lost about 2-3 attempts in it overall, maybe. So yeah, we're certainly going to get quicker as this session goes on. And with the drivers coming out for another lap near the end of this session, we'll certainly see the times improve even more and the track improve even more.
Yeah, we definitely will, and the drivers will all be aiming for that improvement. Obviously, the top guys now, if they did use a U set at the start of the session, which I assume most of them did, it now means they're going to have 2 fresh sets of tyres for Q3. So for PSR Wilson, for Talent Factory Rudy, and I don't think Bradder's used an extra set, they're all going to have a big advantage because of that, and that will help them a lot in Q3 because they'll be able to get a quick banker time on the board with their first set of fresh softs, and then when the track evolution is at its best, they'll be able to smash that time and hopefully get themselves a little bit further up the order than everyone who doesn't have as many soft sets of tires than they do. But you can see now a couple of drivers did improve in that mid stage of the session. So as of right now, the cutoff is a 15.1. So a 15 flat might not be out of reach for a cutoff point because currently P8 is on a 15 flat. So the drivers need to improve by quite a bit. Schumacher is going to have to improve by a 10th, Kimber as well. But obviously, if these all get to a 15 flat, the cutoff point might be even lower. But I think those guys in the 1 minute 14-second lap times are quite safe. Although Talent Factory Black Box on a 1 minute 14.9 is currently 2/10 faster than the cutoff point. He's decided to go out for another lap time. So I don't know. I think that's quite interesting to see from Black Box. Do you think that maybe we could see a cutoff point of 1:14.9, or do you think Black Box is just playing this a little bit safer?
We might see one being a 0.9, but I reckon Black Box is just playing it for safety, really. If he doesn't need to improve, he's fine. But if he does, he's out on the circuit. He's able to actually get the lap time, because even Bradders and Fern have also come out, and also Kai as well. So they might think they're not that safe. Maybe Bradders is safe, but Fern, Black Box and Kai not thinking they're safe. Kimber's on the lap. He set the exact same first sector than he did the lap before, so I want to stay on board with Kimber here to see if he's able to improve either into the 0.0s or the 0.9s as he heads through turn 9 and now down the hill into Aqua Minerale, which will then lead back up the hill down to 4th gear, hitting the apex quite nicely, using as much of the exit curve as he possibly can. He's up by a 10th and a half, so we could maybe see a 0.9 cutoff here, depending on the other drivers in this session. So Kimber now, as he heads down the hill into the first of the 2 Ravazzas, there's a Mercedes in his way. I don't think that will affect him too much, maybe a bit of a distraction. But now as we head to the line, is Kimber going to improve enough to get into the 0.9s? No, it's going to be a 15.018, and he's still on the cusp as Axe goes quickest from the bottom of the pile, so it shows that time is certainly easy to find in this session.
Yeah, and what a brilliant lap from Axe F1. 14.7, goes faster than both Wilson and Rudy. Black Box now goes to P1 with a 14.6 from the McLaren driver. Shizou Tom, he was last. He just about gets himself into top 10, but instantly gets knocked out by Talent Factory Kian, who pops himself into 1 minute 14.9s. And maybe the drivers who did have 1 minute 14 second lap times were right to go out, because it's looking like that could be the cutoff. Maybe even the likes of Kai is not safe, as we're continuing to see improvements. Stonks shoots himself up to P5. Lesh goes to P8, and Kian, who's on a 14.9, might get knocked out here. You can see Berman made a mistake, I think, out of that last chicane. But he is now coming into the final 2 turns through turn number 17, using a bit of that curve, but he's gone slightly wide on the exit. He's invalidated his time. He will be qualifying P15. Schumacher improves, but it's only good enough for P12. PSR Kai was definitely right to go out. He was so far up in this session, but he's fallen all the way down because so many drivers have improved by big margins. Now, can Kai get himself through to Q3? He was right to go out, but can he get the improvement that he needs? Yes, he can. He sets a 14.7, does the Red Bull driver. That puts him on the provisional front row of the grid, and he will go through to Q3. Great job there from the PSR driver. But wow, what a surprise to this qualifying session. The last cutoff time was a 15.3. Now it's a low 1 minute 14.9. That's absolutely insane to see. But the knockouts are Talent Factory Kian. A big surprise there. That he gets knocked out of the session. Schumacher gets knocked out in the Alpine. Kimber only sets a 15 flat. Bourbon invalidated his lap time, so he is out of the session. And Shizou Tom down in P14, he is out of Q2. So yeah, I think personally Kian is definitely a bit of a surprise for a knockout. But is there anyone in those bottom 5 that really surprised you in this session?
I would maybe say Shizou Tom. He might want to be a bit further up, but wow, that really shows how much the track improved in those final few minutes. Everyone was really on a 0.2, a 0.1. Then they all started blasting in lap times into the 0.8s, the 0.7s, and it was a 14.9 cutoff. So the drivers that went out from the top, their sort of theories were corrected by the overall times that we saw get put on the board, and it's 4,000 separating Kai and Black Box. That is super close. So if we see that in qualifying, we're going to be surely in for a very close race. But yeah, I feel like maybe Tom would have wanted more, and the track certainly improving. We might even see a 0.4, maybe even a 0.3 for pole position.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be, the improvements are gonna be massive. I mean, that track evolution shows you what it's like. I mean, the likes of Axe going to a 14.7, much quicker than we saw Rudy and Wilson go in that Q2 session. Obviously, they set 1 minute 14.8 second lap times, which in itself was very quick, and they set that earlier on as well when the track evolution wasn't at its best. So keep an eye on the 2 championship. The 2 that are the top 2 in the championship. Obviously, they're not there for no reason. So PSR Wilson and Rudy are obviously the favourites to battle it out for pole position. Rudy won by a few 100ths of a second in Q2. Then Wilson won by a few 1,000ths of a second in Q2. Sorry, Rudy won in Q1. Wilson won in Q2. Who is going to win in this Q3? So I'm sure it will be extremely close between the 2 of the drivers, but it's not just them who will be battling for pole position. Axe obviously set that absolutely stunning 1 minute 14.7. I think Talent Factory Black Box set a 1 minute 14.8 as well, so we could see them up there and battling for that pole position spot. But anyone who only had to set 1 lap time in that session, and I think at the end it was only Rudy and Wilson who set 1 lap time in the session. I think from P3 downwards, they all went out for another lap. So Rudy and Wilson are the only 2 drivers with that advantage. How do you think that's really going to help them in this session?
I think it's going to help them quite a bit, because 2 runs on some fresh tyres compared to everyone else having only the 1 fresh set. So that's going to help them out maybe quite a bit, especially with the way the track evolves as well. So they will keep on getting quicker and quicker as this session goes on. I mean, Wilson's the first one out. He's very eager to get this Q3 underway. We've got 10 minutes and 30 left in this session. Rudy's not come out just yet. Overall, it will certainly help with confidence if they're able to get the first lap time on the board on those fresh tyres. It will also give them maybe a bit of just confidence and also just relax them a bit for the second run, knowing they have that time on the board for them to really just push on in that second lap and not really worry about, oh my god, am I going to start P10, and just overall how they want to start up their final runs. But we're on board with Wilson now, as he's heading down into the first chicane. Of course, turns 2 and 3, turn 1 is a little kink on the straight after you pass the start-finish line. As we now head into the Villeneuve chicane with Wilson down to 5th gear. Nicely done, using a lot of room on the exit. A 24.0 in that first sector, a very quick one actually. We might even dip into the 23.9s in that first sector. But now up the hill and into turn 9. Of course, you want to clip that curb by a tiny bit and then run it all the way out to that right hand side. Now through Aqua Minerale, some drivers clip this inside curb, some don't. Some use a bunch of the outside curb. Wilson electing probably not to there a bit too much, as it's 49.7 in the middle sector. Very, very committed, very anti-outer there. The chicane was just launching the car over the curbs, and now into the final 2 corners. The first Ravazza done quite nicely, and then fling it into the second one. Make sure not to cut the corner too much of those sausage curbs. Run it all the way out wide, and now to the line. What will it be for Wilson? It's a 1 minute 14.6. It matches, I think, the time that we saw last time, as Fern goes into second with a 15.2. Is anyone else on near the end of their laps? I think it might be Allison, as he's heading through the final 2 corners now. 50.2 in the middle sector, so he's very far down on Wilson as he comes to the line. What would it be for Allison? It's a 15.7, definitely on the use set for him. And yeah, all the other drivers on the lap have backed out of them and are not going for them, and will probably just reset and go again.
Yeah, so that actually goes to show only 3 drivers were able to set lap times. I think Allison was on a worn set, Fern was also probably on a worn set. So the only 3 drivers set lap time, and only one of which actually set it on a fresh set of softs, and obviously that is the Ferrari driver of PSR Wilson. So he's got a 14.6 onto the board. That is now the time to beat for the rest of the field. And let's see if this man right here can do it. Axe F1 in the Alfa Romeo coming out of turn number 3 and or 4 that was. As we now head into the Villeneuve chicane. That's another lap time set from PSR Plaki, but obviously that was not representative, so he's going to go again on that set of soft compound of tyre. Through turn number 7 there, didn't actually use any of the exit curve there, so surprising to see, and hopefully that hasn't affected his exit too much, although I'm sure he would have lost a few 100s because of that. Through Aqua Minerale, he absolutely sent it into there, braking as late as possible, just about got it slowed down though, as he's now going to head into the chicane of turn number 14 and 15. You can see didn't cut that first apex possibly as much as he maybe would have wanted to, but nevertheless he's going to continue on with this lap time. So it's been a few mistakes in this lap, but nevertheless I'm sure it will be a quick time from the Alfa Romeo driver. He's got one more turn to go, which he absolutely nails, getting his foot onto the power absolutely perfectly across the line for the Axe driver, but it's a 14.6, so maybe my eyes deceive me, as those mistakes might have been the best lines possible. That's a brilliant lap from the Alfa Romeo driver. It puts him on provisional pole position and ahead of PSR Wilson by a couple of 100ths of a second. Great job there from Axe F1. So it looks like the pace that he found in Q2 is following him through to Q3.
Yeah, certainly it does seem that Axe is really just putting the pressure on to the likes of Wilson and Rudy, and Blackie on 2 lap old tyres set a 14.7, so maybe if he didn't mess up the first lap on those tyres, he might just be within a shout of also going for pole position as well. Rudy is on the lap as he's heading through this penultimate corner and now up to the line. Can Rudy go for pole? Yes, he can. It's a 14.5, a very good lap time there from Rudy. He's now nearly just over a 10th clear of Axe. It's 10th clear of Wilson. That's going to help him out a lot. Wilson's gone out now. Kai now to the top with a 14.531. So this is going to be a very, very close qualifying session. And what we thought maybe Wilson and Rudy being the only two drivers to really be fighting for pole, it's turned into either 4 or 5 cars that actually have a chance. What about Black Box now? A 49.8 in the middle sector, as he's now heading down into the Ravazza corners. Of course, you can see all the houses over in the distance, and now through the final corner. As you can see, there is a Mercedes starting a lap in front of him. I think it's Fern. And across the line for Black Box is a 1 minute 14.855. So everyone in the 14s that have set tyres on probably new sets. But Kai certainly within a good shout for pole position here.
Yeah, Kai himself, Rudy, Axe, Wilson, maybe even Placky can get in that battle too. There's so many drivers who are in this battle for pole position. I certainly was not expecting this at all. I thought, you know, with the performance that Rudy and Wilson were putting in Q1 and Q2, they looked for sure to be the two drivers who were going to lock out the front row of the grid. But now, every driver, they know this is the final part of qualifying. Everyone's kicking it up a notch and making sure that they set the fastest lap times that they can possibly set, pushing themselves to the limit to attempt to get this pole position, and everyone else just wants to get as high as humanly possible. PSR Fern is currently on a lap. I think it's the second of the session and on a fresh set of soft compound tyres. I don't know if he'll have time to get a third. Hopefully for his sakes he can get around the lap time quickly enough and get back into pit lane and set one final lap. And across the line, this might be his final time, and if it is, it's pretty decent. It's a 14.6, which puts him into P5 ahead of his PSR teammate of Placky, and Mercedes driver now up there and into top 5, although I'm sure that will be beaten by a few of the guys behind. Obviously, Placky set his time on 2 lap old soft compound tyres. Black Box setting his time. Bradders, Allison, and Stonks was not actually able to get a time onto the board, and obviously Allison's 15.7 isn't representative of his true pace. We now got 3 minutes left in the session, and Kai currently ahead of Rudy by a couple of 100ths of a second, and then the 10th behind them are Axe, Wilson, and Fern. So the top 5 separated by about a 10th of a second, and if you had to guess one driver, I know it's quite tricky to do because of how close it is and how surprised we've been by new drivers getting themselves up there. But if you had to pick one man for pole position now that we're in this final stage, who'd you go for?
You know what? I'm gonna go for Axe. He's been up there in Q2. He's now up there in Q3. He's seeming very, very strong at the moment. Yes, he's going to be the first one out and maybe not have the best track possible to what he possibly could get if if he came out after everybody. Sorry, but yeah, we're going to have to wait and see. Might get a tiny bit of traffic as he heads down into the Ravazzas on his lap. He's got to make sure everybody gets round in front of him. It's going to be very, very close though up at the top. I mean, the top 4, maybe even if Fern comes out again. Actually, no, I reckon everyone's got a shout for pole position here, and they just need to pull that lap out the bag when they need to, and it's going to be a very, very close one. Axe is about to start his lap now, so we're going to go on board with this, surely, as DRS is open for the Alfa Romeo as he's now heading down this main straight. He's going to have a Red Bull in front of him. I think that's going to be Kyle. I think it's going to be Ty in front of him as we now head through the Tamburello chicane. Maybe a bit wide for his liking, maybe not really the greatest of Tamburellos, and yes, I think he's backed out of that one. He does have time to back off and go again, and that's now allowed Allison to be the first one at the moment to try set a lap time on board with a 2/10 improvement at the moment, so certainly a lot fresh tyres than his first lap.
Yeah, at 15.7, being beaten quite easily in the first sector, but he's got to find a lot more than 2/10 on that time. But on the exit of turn 9, just trying to push the exit as hard as he could, but he has gone over the track limits and invalidated his lap time, so he's going to have to abandon this one. Does have enough time to go over the line and set one more, but let's right on board with Talent Factory Rudy, the man who we thought was going to He's storming away with pole position. He's now got a decent bit of competition as PSR Kai is sending his lap time ahead of him. But let's watch Rudy as he heads out of turn number 4 now and into the Villeneuve chicane. Let's see how he takes this. You can see cutting the first apex as much as you like. Doesn't care about the yellow sausage curb on the inside, and it's paid dividends because he is 4/100ths up on his time heading through turn number 7 now, opting not to use that exit curb. We saw the same with PSR Wilson, so maybe it just loses you too much traction for what it's giving you. But we are now heading down the hill into Aqua Minerale, hitting that apex just about, and now onto the exit, trying to use the full capabilities of the circuit, and he does that quite nicely, although he's down on his time through the middle sector. PSR Kai has invalidated his lap time. Axe has set his time. It's a 14.6. Oh no, that's not the time they set. He's gone on another lap, of course, because he abandoned his first time. So the top two not really improving upon their time. Maybe Rudy can find some time in the final sector of the lap. He was down in the middle sector, but in the final sector he does improve by enough to snatch away that pole position. It's a 14.4 for the AlphaTauri driver. Wilson attempts to beat it, but he only goes to a 14.5. Now let's see, can anyone get close to that 14.4 from Talent Factory Rudy, our championship leader, looking pretty good for pole position. Talent Factory Brothers goes to P4 with a 14.6. Axe F1 though, he's heading through turn number 18. Can he do anything to beat Rudy? No, because he's abandoned his lap time. He's come into the pit lane, so a 14.6 will be his final time. The last driver out on circuit is now PSR Fern and also his teammate PSR Stonks. It's turn number 18 for the Mercedes driver, trying to really go flat out there through that turn 18 across the line. It's a 14.6 for PSR Fern. That pops him up to P6 in this session. Stonks has invalidated his lap time, which means at the end of the day it is Talent Factory Rudy on pole position with PSR Wilson on the front row of the grid, and it's exactly what we predicted from Q1 at the start of the session.
Yeah, it is Wilson and Rudy up at the top, and that's exactly where they want to be, really. And the two championship leaders in that order, P1 and P2, just like how they are in the standings. And we thought maybe someone could topple them in this session, but no. And look at that, only half a tenth separating the top 3 in this one. And wow, just overall a very, very close qualifying session. A 14.4 pole position, very, very quick lap time. And yeah, we'll just have to see what this race brings. Of course, the only one DRS zone around this circuit does really mean DRS trains aren't really as prominent around the circuit like this. It's very easy to lose the back of the car in front. So we're just going to have to wait and see. Surely a lot of action from these drivers. And yeah, just have to wait and see for the race.
We definitely will there, and yeah, it's like you said, there's only one DRS zone at this circuit, so and that is on the main pit straight itself. So all throughout the second sector and the final sector of the lap time, when you have that dirty air, it is quite easy to lose the DRS to the cars ahead. So don't be surprised if we see a couple more drivers falling out of DRS than we usually do in this Challengers tier. But we are now ready for the Grand Prix itself, and strategy-wise, I'm sure you're all very used to hearing this, but it is going to be a hard medium strategy for the drivers, as it is at pretty much every single circuit on this F1 game, which is a shame to see. I think they just messed up the tires on this game, and that's why we've seen pretty boring strategies on this game. But obviously safety cars can spice things up, although I'm not even sure if the safety car is enabled, because isn't I think it might be disabled for real challengers. Yeah, there you go. So
yeah,
for real challengers it's obviously disabled, because I think the guys over at Codemasters know how many bugs the safety car can produce, so they just play it safe with it, turning it off. So there's no safety cars to bail out any of the drivers today, but we might see some drivers go for a 2-stop if they make mistakes earlier on in the race. But with no safety car than we're used to in most tiers, it means if you make a single mistake, there's really no saving you in this Grand Prix.
Yeah, this really does prove who is the best of the best. There's no room for error, no really room for mistakes. So Yeah, it really shows who the top drivers are and who maybe capitalise off the safety cars a bit more when they're racing. But it's what actual F1 Esports does as well. There is no safety car in that too. So really just providing them with pretty much the true esports experience. Yes, it's not the with Yano Otmir and stuff like that, but this really is the stepping stone up to the top. And yeah, it's going to be very, very close racing. If you make a mistake, you're pretty much dropping a few places or you're pretty much out of this one. So we're just going to have to wait, see what these drivers can do. They're all going to hopefully keep it clean into turn one, so we don't have anyone about 20 seconds back just trundling around. And yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. But the battle between Rudy and Wilson is certainly going to be a good one. And with them two being at the top of the standings, they certainly want to get the one up on each other.
They definitely do, and this race is going to be a crucial point because Rudy, he's already got an 18-point lead in the championship. So PSR Wilson, he really now needs to get that result over Rudy. He needs to beat him in this Grand Prix so that Rudy doesn't go running away with this championship. But the Grand Prix is about to get underway. All of the drivers are now on the grid and getting ready for the race itself. And we can now see all 20 drivers. They're preparing themselves for this Italian Grand Prix. We have 5 red lights. They're gone and we're away. What kind of start is it for our pole man of Talent Factory, Rudy, up against Wilson? It's not a fantastic one because Wilson is trying to pull alongside coming into turn number 1. Wilson has the outside line. Can he possibly hold it? He might, and he does. Wilson holds his line around the outside at the first chicane on Talent Factory, Rudy. Brilliant start for the Ferrari man. He goes from P2 to P1. PSR Kai hanging in behind, trying to get nice and close to the back of Talent Factory, Rudy, and benefit from the bad start that Rudy has had. Maybe catch him in a bit of chaos. We can see PSR Stonks going side by side through turn number 7, trying to get past Placky on the exit. Doesn't do so successfully though, and he's now got big pressure from Keane behind, who almost pushes him through turn number 9. And right now on this opening lap, everyone at gearbox to gearbox getting as close as they possibly can to one another, so that if a single one makes a mistake, they will be making a move almost instantaneously. But so far on this opening lap of the Grand Prix, Wilson has got a dream start. He's up to P1.
Yeah, absolutely an amazing start there from Wilson. They say you don't really want to start in P1 around a circuit like this. There's a massive scrap going down at the bottom of this group of cars. It's all led by Choco at this moment in time. We should have to see if Levi is able to make the move. Of course, Levi, quite a big shot out of Q1 as well. He was up in Q3 last time out. So we'll see Carrion on board as he's going to try maybe go around the outside here of the Ferrari. The Ferrari will defend it, but he goes over the sausage curves. That's springboarded him out wide. He's got damage and he's forced Levi onto the gravel. Levi probably will not be happy with that, but at the moment in time keeps his P16 but goes very deep into Villeneuve, and actually further up this battle between Schumacher and Kimber, and there's a yellow flag, and I think that is for Amin, and Bourbon Boy is also in the pit lane. But Schumacher versus Kimber into turn 9. Kimber just wins out on that one, and Schumacher will probably have to sit behind until very anti-ultra unless he tries a really risky move into Aqua Minerale, but he does not. But yes, a dream start for Wilson. They do say around Imola you don't want to start in P1, so you have to turn straight off the bat, so the traction is a lot harder to get down. It's been proven right today, and Wilson up at the top in P1, followed by Rudy in second.
Yeah, so there you go. Rudy might have set the fastest lap time in qualifying, but he has not got the best starting position on the grid because of the way turn 1 is angled. Nevertheless, he's still up there in P2 and right on the back of PSR Wilson, who sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, continuing to improve upon his time. You can see not too many position changes in the midfield, as apart from Wilson and Rudy and Fern and Allison, those were the only 4 drivers who switched positions. Everyone else in the top 11 has kept their qualifying position. You can see Choco now has made a mistake through the first chicane of the lap time, and he's fallen down to P18 because of that, as Amin gets a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane, and that's because he is retiring from the session. So that is our first retirement from the Grand Prix. sadly, the Alpine driver just not thinking that it's worth it to carry on with this race. And Bourbon in a pretty similar position, obviously got caught up in an incident on lap 1, had to come into the pit lane, and is now down in P19. So himself, Amin and Choco, their races haven't started the way they maybe would have liked, but because of that, Lucas, Quantum and Levi have all gained a couple of positions off of that race start. I would definitely help them out. Now they're slightly closer to the points paying positions of the top 10, but everyone's spreading out a little bit more now. The gaps were around 2/10 per driver on lap 1 and lap 2, but now that we've gotten onto lap 4 as well, since that's another fast lap, the Grand Prix, the gaps are starting to spread out a little bit. And one gap that has spread out quite a bit is PS Fern on the back of Radars, currently 7/10 behind the Talent Factory driver, so you might have to use a little bit of ERS to make sure he stays within the DRS of the top 4, because if you do lose the power of opening up that rear wing flap, especially in this 17-man DRS train, it could see you losing any sort of hope of moving up the field.
Yeah, it certainly will. I mean, this DRS train is so long and it's really, really powerful, especially if you combine it with the ERS, the battery of the car. It can be a real killer if you don't have it and the car behind you does. So yeah, you're really going to have to try and keep within DRS in this one and defend as much as possible while trying to just push forward throughout this race. I mean, the drivers at the back, they're going to just have to try and capitalise on the mistakes at the moment. There's going to be no real opportunity for them with how compact this field is at this moment in time to just get forward and get ahead. So they're going to have to really put each other under pressure and try their best on capitalising on any small mistake that happens. I mean, Allison is now 7/10 behind Ferns. He might be the first one to drop out at DRS, and that could allow Axe to maybe try and attack. As actually I say that, Rudy's made the attack for the lead, and he's got ahead of Wilson into turn 1.
There you go, the top 2 switching positions, and I don't think Rudy even had to use that much ERS, as Rudy and Wilson both pretty much on around 90% ERS, so neither of them want to push at this stage. They know this is the hard compound tire stint. This is not the stint where you make up positions that will gain you points. So Rudy and Wilson both playing it safe, I should say. Wilson doesn't mind too much if he does get overtaken by Rudy, so long as he's within that DRS, he is still safe in this Grand Prix. We've got a long, long way to go. Lap 5 of 32 in this race, and now Rudy leads this Grand Prix from P1. Goes the AlphaTauri driver. Everyone else in the midfield, though, like you said, if anyone makes a mistake, they will be losing their position. So everyone's got to keep focused and make sure that they keep it consistent, getting the same line absolutely pin perfect every single lap, because they don't want to be losing DRS to drivers ahead either. But you can see Shazoo Tom, he's one almost outside the DRS of Schumacher. He's gone wide on the exit turn 17. Has he lost the DRS to the Alpine driver? As we look at his rear view, he does just about get that DRS on Schumacher head and stays within the DRS train. But PSR Wilson getting very close to the back of Talent Factory Rudy. So you can see, even though there is only one DRS zone at this circuit, it is quite powerful, as we saw Rudy overtake Wilson without the use of the ERS. So because the downforce is so high at this circuit, using that extra bit of drag reduction really gains you quite a bit of top end speed, especially since the pit straight is also quite long. So everyone for now is staying within the DRS. Shazoo Tom had a bit of a scare through the final sector of the lap time, but he's still within the DRS of Schumacher. And right now, everyone keeping it very consistent. We're not seeing too many moves, although I think we could see a lot of moves once the pit stops come around. And what lap do you think we could see these drivers coming into the boxes?
I think I'm strong around Imola with my pit stop knowledge. I think it might be around lap 16 to 18 if my memory serves me correctly. The mediums can go a very long way in this race. It might even be in the 20s for all I know, but I think it is around about lap 18. And here comes Wilson on Rudy into just before they get down into the Tamburello chicane, and Rudy has to sit behind Wilson. These two are probably going to be swapping places all the way to the pit window, because they just want to be in front of the other. And really it does help them conserve their tyres a bit more if they're the car in front, because they've got all the clean air in front of them. So the tyres won't wear as bad, they won't have the effects of dirty air as well through most of the circuit. Levi has got past Tom, so I think Tom's made a bit of an error. It's now 1.4 between Schumacher and Levi. So yeah, they've not really had the best of luck, that train all stuck behind Tom. But yeah, it's going to be just probably switcheroo until the end of the race between Wilson and Rudy. But the pit window, that's really when we will start to see the drivers get a bit more aggressive, and that's Bourbon round in the first sector and on the exit of the Tamburello chicane.
Yeah, another error there from Bourbon. It's just not been his day today ever since that first pit stop, and now making another mistake, and yeah, his day just going from bad to worse. Doesn't look like he'll be scoring points today. He's currently 14 seconds behind the rest of the field, but I'm sure he will continue on, as obviously Choco and Amin weren't too motivated to continue on with the Grand Prix. But Bourbon knows he is practicing, so just getting those lap times onto the board, practicing that consistency, that race pace, trying out all the different compound of tires, it will help him for when the real thing comes around. But that's another overtake now for Shizou Tom. He gets himself back ahead of Levi, because Levi did not have the DRS of Schumacher ahead. Now, because they've used the DRS and used a bit of a slingshot strategy, they've gotten themselves back up into that DRS train of the top 13. So a good little bit of teamwork there between Shizou Tom and Levi. Means that they are still in contention for points in this Grand Prix. Schumacher, though, 3-second time penalty for the Alpine driver. He's the first man to extend the track limits just one too many times, as we're seeing Kian make the move on PSR Stonks. Talent Factory Kian has been quite close to the back of Stonks for quite a few laps as well now, and he's now finally gotten ahead of the Mercedes driver. I think that's because he did have a bit of wheel spin out of Aqua Minerale. But could that be an issue for the Haas driver? Could he get himself into the DRS? I don't know if he's been in that DRS by the detection point. He might have just about been. He's using his DRS. He has gotten that DRS. Absolutely crucial there from Talent Factory Kian to get into the DRS of the top 9. So not only has he gained a position, he's also maintained his ERS. Talent Factory Rudy switching positions with Wilson once again as they continue to use the DRS to attempt to pull away from the rest of the field. But the main focus is now on Talent Factory Kian. He's just on that 1 second gap between 1 second and 9/10 as Axe has made an error out of the Villeneuve chicane, and he's lost the position to Black Box and Placky. He's fallen down to P9 because of that.
Yeah, it just seems like he's gone a bit wide onto the gravel by the looks of his tyres, and he's just dropped 2 places there. Maybe just a bit of understeer causing him just to go that tiny bit wide. Of course, once you're on that gravel, it just drags you in further, and he's actually had a huge slide and he's in the wall. Axe is round and in the wall. He's lost his front wing, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does retire, but maybe just go round for a bit of practice. You know, you just got to make sure that you know your setup well and everything. So maybe if he comes in for the mediums, just do a few laps on those, know how they feel for challenges, but we'll have to wait and see what he decides to do. Wilson, is he going to be close enough to Rudy to go for anything into Tamburello? But that's actually quite unfortunate for Axe. He was in a quite good position before he made the mistake at the Villeneuve chicane. He was up in P7, I think, at that time, maybe even P6. So yeah, that's a real big shame for Axe. See what he does now, and hopefully he will crack on and just try to get a bit more practice in. But Wilson, not close enough to Rudy, and Axe does retire from the session, and that's allowed Bourbon just to be the last one to trickle around the circuit. I say that, he spun round at the very end of the outer as well now, so yeah, Bourbon's race just keeps going from bad to worse. There's no safety car, he'll never get to the back of the field again, so yeah, unfortunate for Bourbon. But Wilson, is he going to try anything on Rudy anytime soon? We're on lap 10 of 32. This race has gone by pretty quickly with these drivers, and yeah, everyone's still just within DRS of each other. Kian was out of DRS to Placky, but he's got back in, and Lucas now a 3-second time penalty to his name.
There you go. Axe retiring from the session. big shame to see, but this is the perfect place to make those mistakes, make those errors, understand where you've gone wrong, so then you can get it right for the real thing. So Axe will definitely be disappointed with that mistake, but he now knows that he's got to be a little bit more careful into Aqua Minerali with the heavy fuel load, and I think it all started with that mistake at the Villeneuve chicane. Obviously, made a mistake out there, lost the 2 positions, and then when you make a small error like that, and you, especially when you lose positions, you also lose a little bit of focus with that, so it offsets you with your racing line, and then obviously a little bit of frustration building up, and then on the exit of Aqua Minerali just took the wrong line into there and sadly saw himself spin and out of the Grand Prix. So that's the end of his race. Wilson overtakes Rudy, as we just saw there on the pit straight. VSR Lucas has also retired from the Grand Prix. I think he lost the DRS to the top 15, and pretty much if you lose that DRS of the drivers ahead of you and you're outside of the points, your race is pretty much over, because it's so difficult to get back into that DRS, because everyone ahead of you has just got bulletproof consistency, they've got fantastic pace, and yeah, super difficult to get back into that DRS once you've lost it. Pit stops can help you in a situation like that. Going for a bit of an undercut can maybe gain you some time with the clean air, but Lucas was not able to make it work, and he's just continuing to lose time. So he is out of the race. Bourbon, though, continues on, making sure to get those practice laps in. I think Levi has gotten himself a 3-second time penalty for extending the track limit. So 2 drivers have gotten time penalties for extending the limits, and that goes to show, we saw it in qualifying, we're now seeing it in the Grand Prix. Track invalidations are quite a big thing at this circuit, but right now most drivers dealing with it pretty nicely. Everyone, well, most drivers and everyone in the top 11 have got 0 seconds of time penalties. We're now seeing PSR Placky lose a little bit of pace to Talent Factory Black Box ahead on that teetering edge of DRS between 1 second and 9/10. But right now he's in that DRS as he comes through Aqua Minerali. But Sap 12, we're slowly getting closer to those pit stops, and I think once we do, that's when we're going to see a little bit of friction caused throughout the grid.
Yeah, that certainly will be the undercut or the overcut. What will be the better strategy, as Quantum and Levi both get penalties there, so that's now 6 seconds to Levi and 3 seconds to Quantum. That's certainly not what they want. At least they're finding out where you can cut and can't cut on the track limits now instead of the main challenges race. But we have Placky in and Stonks as well, so the undercuts might have already started. Flacky, of course, was losing time, so that's pretty smart by him, just to make sure he can try and get back in and back out ahead of Black Box. But we'll just have to wait and see how these strategies pay off. Onto the medium tyres they go, as Rudy stays behind Wilson once more. And don't be surprised if more drivers do come into the pit lane at the end of this lap, and we'll see if anyone responds to the drivers behind. But that 13 of 32... still going around the circuit, not many drivers with penalties. Of course, this track, known for track limits, is very tough, especially with understeer through some of the corners. And as these hard tyres wear on, the more understeery and oversteery they will get. So Wilson, he's still pretty much setting personal best lap times. He's only half a tenth down, as that's actually Levi spinning at Aqua Minerale, maybe due to contact with Quantum. I don't exactly know. It's quite an odd place to go around. Bourbon has retired from the session after all. And yeah, Levi's race pretty much done now due to that spin. Either Quantum contact, I think that might have been the reason, because it was a very odd place to go around, and Stonks now gets 3 seconds and no one actually in the pit lane unless your name's Kian and Kimber.
Yeah, there you go. More people coming into the pits, and quite aggressive undercuts. Obviously, I haven't raced at Imola in quite a while, but stretching the mediums for 20 laps, I mean, at any circuit, that would seem like quite the aggressive strategy to go with. So PSR Placky, PSR Stonks and Schumacher, obviously these guys are the Challengers drivers. They have a lot of data on the tires, how long they can last, and maybe hoping that when they get back into the DRS train, that will save them a bit of tire wear. But Placky tried to send it around the outside of Kian while he still had cold tires into the first chicane. It's not worked out for him though, because he's now lost the position to his teammate Stonks as they head through the Villeneuve chicane. His PSR teammate Stonks, who's gotten up into P10 because of that, but obviously Placky with the warmer medium compound tires, he just had that overspeed coming into turn 1, so we thought he may as well try something, but Kian was not expecting it whatsoever, and didn't give him any room because of that contact made between the two. Placky went off the circuit, and now he's lost a position to Stonks because of that. But Kian is now leading this medium tire compound DRS train. Will that last though? Rudy makes a move on Wilson as they continue to switch positions, but we see more drivers coming into the pit lane. Talent Factory Brothers onto the medium compound of tire, and Allison is also into the pit lane. Let's see where these guys come out relative to Talent Factory. Kian, could we see another similar incident down at turn number 2 and 3? We'll have to see as Kian is barreling down this pit straight. No DRS though, will cost him a little bit of time. Schumacher sets the fastest after the Grand Prix on his medium compound of tires. Kian is coming up on the back of his teammate Allison. He might lose a little bit of time through turn 2 and 3 because of Allison's cold tires. Will he try to make a move into the Villeneuve chicane? He might. He's using a lot of his DRS. He looks to the inside line on his teammate, and he gets the job done on Allison. Brilliant move from Kian.
Yeah, really nice move there from Kian. Also, maybe a bit smart from Allison as well, just to back out a bit, make sure he doesn't go too far out wide and get some dirt on his tyres. But very opportunistic there from Kian, just to put his nose there and get alongside to just make sure that he sort of has the corner in a sense, because Allison, he's not going to be turning in there with the car and he's inside, or there's going to be certain contact. Third now into the pit lane. The undercut, not actually seeming too powerful for Placky, but it has worked out for Kian as he's now ahead of Allison. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens with all these other drivers. I think I've got a glitched Fern at the moment. He's not actually moving down the pit lane, and I have no... Oh, there he goes. There's Fern down the pit lane. And let's see where Bradders comes out in that battle with Fern. Is he going to come out ahead? Yes, he is. What about Kian versus Black Box? It's actually going to be very, very close. This might be a move from Kian down the inside. It is. As Kian goes down the inside and moves up a place, that undercut really working out for this Talent Factory Haas.
And I think there might be some desync issues because... just got the message that there's been a migrating host, which is usually cause for concern, and now Talent Factory Kian on my screen is just cruising along. I think everyone's gone into AI, so that might be a problem with my game, and of course that would happen one time I was streaming, and cross-platform lobbies just absolutely love to do that, so I'm not too sure. I might try to leave the lobby and get myself back in, but I don't know if there's actually anyone who can invite me to the lobby. I'll try to use an old invite, so let me just try to test this now, as I think the lobby is glitched. Yeah, as Kian everyone is pretty much driving like an AI car, so I'll try to leave the lobby and get myself back in. Hopefully this works, but yeah, very sorry about that. The game just glitching itself out there. Sadly, nothing much I can really do about that, but I'll try to get myself back into the lobby, and hopefully we can continue watching this racing action. But we are probably going to miss quite a few of the pit stops because of that. But I'll try to use the invite from before.
Only Tom's coming at the moment, luckily, I think. Yeah, actually no, Rudy did come in up. He's now dropped to third, 25.5 seconds behind now. So we'll see the gap between Wilson and Kai. We'll see if it's going to be shrinking at all, because Bradders is all over the back of Rudy now. So the undercut really is quite strong around this circuit. Of course, you guys at the moment can't see this. So I'll give my best description as they're heading through turn 9 and down the hill into Aqua Minerale. So Rudy now has the temperature in his tyres. He's starting to pull away from Bradders once more. Wilson's now in. Kai's now in. For you guys, everybody at home, I actually can't see this at the moment. Rudy's heading through Variante Alta, and now he's about to head down the hill and into the two Ravazzas. Let's see where Wilson and Kai come out relative to the top to Rudy. So now, as I see Rudy head down the main straight, Kai and Wilson still trundling down the pit lane. I think Rudy might have them here. He's got Kai. He's going to get Wilson. A bit like how Kian got Black Box, maybe even Bradders as well. As actually Kai's gone straight on over the gravel, and Bradders now up into second place. Kai gets past Wilson, and now even Fern will get past Wilson as well. And Wilson having absolute nightmare as he comes out the pit lane and is now down into P5 and behind Fern, Kai, and Bradders. Fern's on 17 lap old mediums apparently. That's not true. Even though he did come in. I think they're about 3 laps old, 4 laps old, maybe even less, 2 laps old maybe. But yeah, Fern getting ahead of Wilson, and he's ahead, and Wilson dropping down behind Bradders, Kai, and Fern. As Bradders actually jumping Kai as well. So Bradders' undercut was absolutely amazing there to put him up into P2, and now the DRS train will probably form once again. And more, are you back into the session yet?
Not just yet, no. Trying to reset my game. Hopefully this will work, but obviously with this game we never know.
Okay. Anyway, back to the running of things. We've got Black Box on the back of Allison. No, nothing happening there in that battle. Now drivers will probably be trying to utilize their tires as much as possible and just push on. Just try to get past as many drivers as they possibly can. The drivers on the younger tires probably be a bit quicker than the likes of the drivers that boxed 4 or 5 laps earlier than them, so we'll have to look out for that too. So now as we head into turn 9, on board with Black Box I am right now. He's behind Allison, everyone about half a second behind each other at this moment in time. Black Box, bit of an outlier. Kian's actually nearly dropping DRS to Wilson as I say that, as he's heading through Aqua Minerale and now into the chicane of Variante Alta, of course, where in 2022 Leclerc was in 3rd place, and he took too much curb, spun out, and allowed Lando Norris to then pick up the podium. So now, heading down into the first of the 2 Ravazzas. Kian's officially lost DRS right now. Wilson's all over the back of Fern. This train behind Rudy is actually getting very, very tense. You can see Fern all over the back of Kai, but now here comes Wilson to the outside of PSR. Fern, is there going to be a move around the outside? No, Fern just about manages to defend it. Is there going to be any sort of sniff of an opportunity into Villeneuve for Wilson? No, there is not. And he has to sit behind Fern once again. There might be a move into Toza though, but once again, just a bit too far back. Wilson thought of the move, but Fern very easily defended. So as we go on, as Kai is actually 3 tenths behind, this top 5 are separated by just over a second and a half to separate in this top 5. 7 tenths separating the top 3, and it seems like Kai is in the better position out of the 2 Red Bulls. Bradders 5 tenths behind Rudy, and then Kai 2 tenths behind Bradders. So there might be a switcheroo from the 2 Red Bulls, as Black Box now picking up a 3-second time penalty. Kian still dropped DRS to Wilson. Fern might actually be blocking Wilson a bit here. Wilson, of course, has a bit more ERS, and Fern flashing at the back of his Mercedes. Here comes Wilson. He's got the DRS. He's got the slipstream. He's using some of his DRS. He's going to go to the inside line now, and I think he's just going to pull this one off before we even get to the braking zone. He does, as Bradders now 2.5 tenths behind Rudy. Just has to sit behind once more. So, Quantum's actually got past Placky there into the Tamburello chicane. Nicely done by him, but still no points being scored. They've dropped DRS to Schumacher, as Bradders now really starting to hold up Kai through Toza, and Kai still all over the back of his Red Bull teammates, and there's nothing working at the moment more.
No, I'm afraid not, and I've just been told by the event organizers, because of the lobby issues, that we should end the stream now. So extremely sorry to everyone because of that, but obviously with the crossplay being obviously new to this game, these difficulties can happen sometimes. So extremely sorry to everyone. I'm sure the results will most likely be up on Twitter or somewhere easy where you can find them. But yeah, again, massive apologies for this game. But thank you at least for watching up until this point. I hope you did enjoy the racing action that we had until now. But this has been all from myself, More Games, and Steve F1. And hopefully, until